from the European Commission. Eva, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to present today the EU action to support development and deployment of SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuels. My name is Eva Onne. I'm team leader for Sustainable Aviation in European Commission in Directorate General for Mobility. And when we look at I have a couple of slides with the context to set the context. So we already had the colleagues from IATA had explained the challenges related with the SAF, and the SAF being actually the main solution. The aviation will rely on decarbonization, and we have this. You saw the graph with the very low quantities of SAF. The SAF as well, that we highlighted that the SAF is the price is a couple of times more expensive, 4 or 6 times expensive, depending on the pathway that we have. So we have these problems of kickstarting a SAF production, and this we always refer to this chicken and egg problem between the supply and demand. So to overcome this, we have came up with the Refuel EU Aviation and now initiative to scale up the SAF supply and uptake. And as well, maybe here I also included some of the decarbonization roadmaps that we have, the international waypoint, the European Destination 2050, and as well the ICAO, the LTAC, which also already as well came up in the previous presentations. All of them, they indicate a very important role of SAF. So if we go to the next slide, I also wanted to place where our initiative fits. So in the EU, we have this flagship initiative with the European Green Deal, which is an overarching, the main objective is the EU to become climate neutral by 2050, and then all sectors will have to contribute. Transport will have to reduce emissions by 90%, and with these initiatives, Refuel EU Aviation, we are contributing to this overall EU goal. And as well, with this initiative, we will contribute to the international aviation goal, so to the implementation of the LTAC, so long-term aspirational goal of net zero, but as well in the more immediate step, the aspirational goal of 5% emission reduction from fuels by 2030. So that's a bit from the context where we stand, and as well from the next slide. We would like to also stress from the EU side that we are in the context, we are speaking about the decarbonization, but SAF has also important other qualities. So another environmental benefit of SAF is improving air quality around the airports. There is also very important industrial dimension of SAF because it creates opportunities for new SAF plants and new job creation. To reach the objectives that we have in EU for SAF, we need more than 100 SAF plants. And as well, there is also a dimension of diversifying energy sources. So it also can help to improve energy security through this diversification. As it was presented, there is a really lot of opportunities, different pathways, different feedstock, which means different regions actually can benefit and can explore what are their strengths and from what resources they have, and they can have opportunity to contribute to this green transition. Yes, so from the now looking more into the actually what this Refuel EU Aviation Initiative is, the most known what we always speak about is the regulation. So it's the one at the bottom, Refuel EU Aviation Regulation, which already entered into the force. So it was adopted last year, but because of the challenge and the different the complexity of of this transition, and this aviation sector now entering this, it's energy transition. So it's also the new value chains needs to be created, new cooperation has to be started. So recognizing this complexity, we see that there is a different dimension, different support needs to be from different angles, and quite a lot of similarities when you see the previous presentation from the UK as well, that you have different aspects of collaboration. So you have a dimension with how to strengthen collaboration. So we have the Renewable and Low Carbon Fuels Alliance, which is it's a non-financial support. It's more the industrial stakeholders who are addressing the forum for the exchange, how to overcome different barriers. And as well, we are very much engaged at the international level, like as well, EU is contributing to the ACT-SAFT program, which was before presented. There is also support to the production and support to the uptake, and here I classify them like with the financial support, which I will as well in my presentation, I will focus on them, but then as well operational, just to flag, so as well how to support coming up the new pathways through this clearinghouse, accelerating the permission process, how to improve transparency on the uptake side, how to increase the transparency. So, for example, through the labeling, improve information to the consumer. We are also looking at the sub-accounting methodologies, which was also presented by IATA. Sometimes it's called like the book and claim. This is something also we are currently exploring. So now going into the details, we go the next slide. So I would focus now on this RefuelEU Aviation in a nutshell. So basically with this regulation, we have two objectives. One is the decarbonization and scaling up the SAF, but equally important as well is ensuring level playing field in aviation through providing the harmonized EU rules, given that aviation is a sector which is operating globally, given that European aviation market is integrated, and so we have internal market for aviation. In terms of on the next slide, so in terms of the obligations, so basically the main the scope and obligations of this regulation is the mandate on the SAF supply to aviation fuel suppliers, which will have to supply SAF blended into the fuels they supply to the union airports in increasing amount. And later on, I will a bit more zoom in into this obligation. Aviation, so union airports are also in the scope to facilitate access to SAF, and aircraft operators are also impacted as they have to uplift fuels at union airports to prevent the excessive tankering practice. So in the next slide, I would now a bit illustrate what is this mandate. So we have this ramp up starting already in 2025. So already as from next year, the aviation fuel suppliers to all union airports. So it's not EU airports, it's the airports above certain thresholds of materiality. So the bigger airports, they have to supply SAF. And during the year, they will have to supply basically the 2% as part of the total fuels that they supply. And this corresponds to this 2%, to give you an idea, is around 1 million tons. So yeah, the number of metrics, there are a lot of different, we have liters, barrels, and tons. So we are using tons in RefuelEU. And then you can see there is a ramp up to 70%. As well, what is another up to 70% in 2050. So this gives, there is a gradual increase, and this gives market predictability in the long term. You see as well, there is a second bar where it starts at 1.2 in 2030. up to 35. So that is a dedicated sub-target on synthetic aviation fuels, which is derived from hydrogen. So this is not what is you're focusing on the biofuels, but a difference you can see out of this would be we expect to be then provided from biofuels. Although it cannot be precluded that that's a minimum target, so the 70, for example, the 1.2 could be in reality higher, maybe 1.5. So then the difference would be smaller. And as well, what maybe mentioned to here, that here we are relying on the, of course, as this is environmental measure, the sustainability dimension is very important. So because at the end we want to ensure reduction of emissions, and not at the expense of the environmental ecosystems and biodiversity, and so we need to take consideration of all the environmental integrity. So we are relying here on the sustainability criteria, and we are not reinventing the wheel. We are relying on the Renewable Energy Directive, which is a horizontal EU legislation which applies also to road transport, maritime, as well the industry, and as well in our regulation, for example, emissions trading system would also rely on this directive. So I think that is the most important messages here, and about the features of this regulation. I would like to also briefly to move to the financial support we have been providing so far. So on the production side, I will focus now, and if we jump to the next one, basically on the production. So one important feature is basically we have those programs, those I listed here, 3 main programs. These are horizontal programs. They are covering all different type of sectors. So as such, there are no dedicated sub calls. No, there will be the calls, but there are no instruments or programs on SAF as such. But there can be, of course, calls dedicated to support SAF. So we have, and but it also allows when we have this open programs, it allows as well for the competition between the projects, and ensuring that the projects are long-term viable, and we select the best one. As well, with these programs, we have this along the maturity stage of the project. So Horizon would be for the least mature projects with the grants. Moving on then to Innovation Fund, which will be more focused on the demonstrations. And then we had some projects, 2 projects I listed there in Sweden, and we have in Norway being selected so far. So until now there were 2 big calls for the large-scale demonstrations. Also, where is the support is the grant. And these proceedings are coming from the emissions trading system. So actually, it's like reusing the money for innovation. And then when we go the most advanced stage, where it's more about deployment, then we are working with the banks, where we are providing the guarantee. And there is more focus on the blended finance, loans, equity. So also we had there one example of the plant being financed of the loan. So this is as concerns the support for the production. And then if we move to the next slide, yes, I wanted also to mention, maybe before we move to the next slide, those slides are those funds are focused on the Europe, and the regions, neighbor regions can also benefit, but in the global gateway. So in the next slide, yes, the global gateway is it provides instruments, grants, loans, guarantees to support. It can support SAF production globally. So SAF has been added as a flagship this year, and we are working jointly with European Investment Bank in implementing this, and other development banks. So there is opportunity to access this financing, and the entry point is the EU delegations across the world. They can advise. So now if we move So that's from the production of SAF production. And I would like to now move on to the next slide and more focus on the uptake, financial support for the uptake. So if we move to the next one. Yes, thank you. There we have a new mechanism, which is the main one is, we call it, we refer to it like the SAF allowances. So basically, it's the support is coming from the EU ETS, and there the airlines that are uptaking the SAF, which are covered under EU ETS, they can receive financing, which will close the gap between the SAF and kerosene. So it will allow to basically bring much closer the SAF, almost at the, depending on the case, it can even be closing the gap completely or partially. There is a different level of financing, whether the region is in outmost region, or the flight is to the outmost region, or what type also the SAF. So there will be different level of the financing. So that can help with the improving the affordability and minimalizing the impact on the consumers, giving the big price gap. So that's a new instrument as of this year, and it's until 2030 with possibility to re-examine for extension. And there is a budget. It depends on the carbon price, but with there is I should correct to this the 80 euro per ton, then it would be 1.6 billion euros. Sorry for that typo. And then as well, what is also important, what can help also to narrow the price gap between SAF and fossil fuels is as well the carbon price, and as well the taxation mechanism. So there we also propose, it's still in the negotiation, but we propose for the intra-EU flights, we propose to tax jet fuel, and there they is structured in a way to favorize SAF, and to the higher taxation will be for the fossil. And under carbon price, of course, then it's a price on the fossil, whereas for SAF there is no carbon. It's treated at 100% of the ton is no emissions. So that is from the support on the uptake. And if we can go next one, I think, yes, that's it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Eva. That was a very informative presentation on the EU's approach, and I